Welcome back to Uplift Women's Wellness. I'm Bethany Bush, and with my co-host, Auria Zahed, we are diving headfirst into Season 2.
Last season, we cracked open necessary conversations: friendships, money, representation, mental health, medical abuse, and so much more. Thank you for making space for your healing.
This season is not getting any lighter. It's getting even more gritty, more honest, and more demanding of change. Because we know what it's like to feel dismissed, unheard, or stuck in the dark.
We're here to give you the honest dialogue and awareness to finally bring you out of the maze and back to your center. From reclaiming your financial power to healing your nervous system, we are demanding more for you.
This is our table, and you are always welcome here. Let's start the conversation. So just how I want to start it, just Karen, you talk about women leading from survival mode without us ever actually realizing it. So what does survival mode actually look like in a woman's day-to-day life?
So it can look like I'm pushing through. This is a really good question. I feel like I'm on autopilot. I'm not even really sure what I did this morning or I did yesterday or 10 minutes ago. I'm doing this when I'm having to function during my day, but then when I come home, I'm completely crashing and numb. And I have a lot of times I come home and I'm like sitting on my couch and I have no idea what I'm watching, what I'm eating. And then I go and I wake up and I do it the next day and I'm running on high energy and going and doing all the things. And then I come home and do the same thing. That's a lot of what it looks like for a lot of my clients.
So how I lived my whole adult life. Cool. Good to know. And how I'm definitely living right now. All right, you have lived both extremes, both trauma in the body and pressure in the corporate leadership world. When was the moment you realized that your nervous system was running the show and you're like, I'm done? Like, let's walk through how we got to where we are right now, where you're not living that life every day anymore.
The last corporate job that I was in, I remember I was on the phone with HR because I had COVID 3 times, like pretty much in a row, but they were like different strains of COVID. And she was very nice, and she's like, all the things that, the company is going to support you with. And I was like, here's the thing is like, the reason I'm in this position is because this environment that I'm in is just like not working for me and I quit. And she's like, but you do realize what you're doing. You're going to lose like all of your benefits and everything. And like, you're sick. And I was like, you know what? I just can't anymore. I can't. This is craziness. I don't think that I fully understood at that time my nervous system. After that happened, I had a couple jobs that were kind of lined up already or that I had opportunities to move to. And then like I moved into those and I quickly was like, oh, it feels kind of the same thing. And I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, the environment was better. There was a lot of just like so much high expectations that like, just it's impossible to be healthy working in that way. I didn't have like a toxic boss though in these other places, so there was some things that were better about it. And I was just like, I had done a lot of wellness on the side throughout my whole corporate career. And so then I finally was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not aligned with who I am. It's not working for me. It works for some people and that's fine, but it doesn't work for me. And so I'm just going to be done and I'm going to figure it out. And I had done like a lot of work on myself as far as like therapy. And I really got involved in yoga to like heal from my eating disorder. And that was what helped me get back into my body. And then when I quit, I was like, I think I'm going to do some other things. So I did like a somatic training and then like a nervous system training. And that's when that really opened my eyes to that also included parts work, which I had done in my treatment, but my body wasn't really ready for it. Like 10 years prior when I was going through that eating disorder treatment, I was like, I understood it and I kind of like stepped in it, but it was like, I'm not really ready to go there. And one of the things that I had really struggled with still was allowing the outside world to really affect me. So that was still something that I was trying to conquer, and understanding my nervous system and then being able to step in the parts work was really the thing that helped me take back control and really be able to like self-lead.
What is parts work? I mean, Auria, you might already know what this is, but that's something I've never heard of.
It's IFS, internal family systems.
Which is?
Which is, sorry, I thought you guys were both therapists.
No, I'm actually an exercise physiologist. Auria is a therapist. So she does the mind, I do the body.
Okay, so the internal family system or parts work is when we look at ourselves of all these different parts. So we might have like protector parts, like being hypervigilant or being a perfectionist or controlling. And then we might have like these exile parts, which are a little bit more like I'm not worthy type of parts. And we're looking at those as like they are part of us, but they are not us. And then we form relationships with them and understand like when did they develop? Why did they develop? Why are they still here? Are they still serving me? And really communicate in a way with them that's compassionate and not shaming.
Gotcha.
Did I explain that well?
Yes, that was fantastic.
I was like, this is the language you two speak. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, that was so good.
When your body was like, ugh, I don't want to go there. That's cool, but I'm just going to stay over here. Could you put words to that feeling, or just was it like, I don't want to touch it. I just want to stay away from it. We're just going to stay over here where it's safe.
Yeah, safe is the exact word, because working with people now in this area, I understand it a lot better of why I was like, oh, people feel like they're going to die when they do that type of work. It's like very, a lot of people will say, I don't want to go to therapy and talk about my past traumas. And that's a fear thing because they don't know what's going to happen. And ultimately it's the same type of thing. It's like this fear of like, if I lean into these pieces of me or these parts of me, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Am I going to unravel and never going to come back? If I allow this controller part to kind of like not lead me anymore, I don't know what that looks like because it's led me for so long. And it's just like a very scary thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Very scary. A lot of people are very avoidant, like you mentioned, Karen. But for our listeners, can you go backwards a little bit? Like the turning point of when you were working corporate and you had a nervous system on overload. When did you really notice, okay, I need to kind of start over? And this is not normal. Because I don't know if you've listened to me, Karen, but I don't think humans were meant to work 40 hours a week. I think that in itself can be too hard on us and kind of get us out of our natural groove as people. So that's why I'm kind of wondering your moment of noticing. And was there a breaking point, or when did you realize that it was not what you really wanted anymore?
So I completely agree with you. I think 30 hours is max. Yeah, I mean, when I got the COVID, I also had an autoimmune issue happening, and I didn't know at the time that was an autoimmune issue. I just knew it was an issue that no one could figure out what was going on, and I couldn't breathe at all through my right nostril, and there was like other things going on as well. And that was like a really frustrating thing for me because I'd always been really healthy. I'd been in the wellness world. I mean, yes, I was anorexic, but besides that piece of it, like once I healed from that, I've been like, a healthy person. So yeah, that moment was just like, this is not life. This is not living. This is insanity, really, of like having it at that time I was working at least 60 hours a week, sometimes 80. And I had way too much on my plate, what I was in charge of. I didn't have the team in place. I mean, part of what my job was to like build this team, but my boss was like non-existent. And I just was like, I'm like killing myself, literally. It's not just like this COVID thing that's going on that probably did cause permanent damage, and I'm honestly not clear if the COVID caused this autoimmune thing. So that's why I'm hesitating there. But literally, this is killing me. It's taking years off my life, and it goes totally against like who I am. And I'm doing all of these things that are like, eating healthy, I'm exercising, I'm doing all these things. And like, what, none of it mattered if I couldn't get my stress under control. And ultimately that's what it came to, is like, I pointed my finger outward a lot, I think still, of like, I didn't have the empowerment. I didn't have the agency. I wasn't taking control of my life. I mean, these parts were like totally running my life. And does that answer your question? I mean, that was really it, of like, I am not healthy anymore. I mean, I'm in my 40s now, and this is like really eye-opening to me because, I'm older now, and things don't just like bounce back the way that they used to. And I can't keep going down this road. This is not the way that I want my life to be.
Yes, that was very helpful, Karen. Yeah, because I think our society kind of trains people go, 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 and ignore symptoms, ignore emotions. So I'm grateful that you've got your way out of that like rat's race mentality. I think it's really important for people to know where their boundaries are. Some people can go, go, go. Great. That's not all of us. That's not all of our boxes. So.
Yeah, I have people say that to me a lot, and I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and a lot of people will be like, oh, well, that person's just weak, or you're weak, or I just don't get it. I don't get what her problem is. It's like, I went through A, B, C, D, and, I did it. I did all these things. They're so like, humans are so complex of like what goes into everybody and why they are the way they are and why they respond the way that they do. But the narrative really needs to change, and it's the people that have never experienced any of it where it's the hardest to get through to them.
I'm that person and Auria and I, it's now become the joke because we did a whole episode on like resting and this and that and what looks like rest and what looks like work. And I'm like, but walking is work, but walking is rest, but going to the beach and doing this is rest, but riding my bike is rest, because that's what brings me joy. That's what grounds me. That's what like getting on the ocean and standing at the beach. That's where I can breathe, and I can do like 4 or 5 miles, and it feels like nothing. Right. But I'm also like, she's constantly having to pull my reins back because, for example, like I'm about to start, I'm running a company, about to start a second master's program. I just adopted a puppy. Like, how many more things can I do? And, I messaged my therapist, and she's like, I went on maternity leave. Like, what are you doing? So like, I'm the worst because I don't know how to not let my parts control me, because that's just, I don't understand another way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a therapist, but just listening to you, I kind of do think that like riding your bike can be restful. It can bring you that like that ventral vagal, which is in your sweet spot. It can really bring you that energy. And it's recognizing if it is or if it isn't. And you could be, I mean, that could be your normal healthy self, of that you are like you can handle a lot, you're go, 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 but most people don't have the awareness. I'm not saying you don't. I just think that like, I don't know that your parts are ruling you. I mean, you just learn what parts are, unless you're lying to me.
No, I am. I had no idea. I was like, well, that makes sense. Sure. Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, you have to figure out, like, everybody has a different baseline, right? So like, what is their baseline first? But with that being said, a lot of people that will come to me, like they're not going to get it unless something like they're in crisis or they've had a crisis. So there's a chronic disease going on. They're going through like a really painful, like divorce or separation, something that is like very destabilizing to their life, is when they finally are like, something's not right internally.
So it goes past and beyond like, oh, I'm just tired. I just got a lot going on. I just like, it feels, what does it feel like?
when you're in like a sympathetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that you would have a lot of awareness of what's going on. So like if you drove somewhere, you might be like, I don't know how I just got here. You wouldn't be like connected. You wouldn't feel connected to other people. What are the 8 C's that I think it's that Siegel talks about? All of those things. Sorry, is shaking her head yes.
Yeah, I don't have them memorized, but it's really...
I can't ever memorize them.
It's really helpful. But yeah, so you're kind of unable to stay present. So you can't feel your body, you can't feel your energy, you can't feel, like you were saying, Karen, connected to other people. You can't feel them, but only because you're not being present. You're overconsumed with other things, but it feels out of your control. And that's why I talk about the go, 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 because I think we are accidentally trained in this society that that's normal. That it's normal to not be able to be present and stable, emotionally stable. And you kind of have to push forward no matter what you feel. And so in IFS, like very, very baseline is like, no, this, like you matter as a person. And so being present and having like an inward dialogue should be the baseline versus the other way where we kind of try to match the societal expectation of a human, which is capitalist in this country.
Well, and also, well, as women too, like that just adds to the ticker even more.
Yeah, like all the things women are told to do and just suck it up and push forward. And that's being a good woman, is putting other people first and not answering to your needs before you answer to other people.
Mm-hmm. And smiling.
Yeah. Smiling.
Do everything with a smile. Look pretty. Don't look uncomfortable. Don't make anybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever had that where I'm like that disconnected where I don't even know that I'm in that mode. So then what is a sign? Like, let's say any of our listeners are listening, like, how do you even know you're there? Like, let's say she's driving down the car on her way to work and she's kind of like, that sounds vaguely familiar, but oh yeah, it's not me.
Yeah. I was just thinking as you were talking, like how I was explaining that you kind of have to have a crisis to bring that awareness up. I also think it can be people that love you that are like, hey, you know, like you're really not yourself, or you seem like you're someplace else. A lot of times it is really difficult when you hear these conversations to know, like if you're just so unaware of that stuff happening in you. And second of all, they're probably not really listening to the podcast. If they're in that sympathetic state, right? They might be like, a lot of times, like we talk about this high achieving or, you know, we need to not produce, be productive. And so again, those are those societal things, right? So when people are driving, really, we should be driving, right? We shouldn't, this is like all these other things that we're trying to do. We're really not present in what we're doing. I'm not saying, I mean, I do it. I mean, but to recognize, like, you know, I feel a little bit like I had too much coffee this morning can be a good feeling to kind of gauge by, like I'm in a higher sympathetic state. And that can be a good indication to be like, I'm just going to focus on driving today. And I'm going to really like feel my hands on the wheel. I'm going to really focus on like what's around me. And maybe I noticed something that I haven't noticed. This is a route that I take every day, you know, and that brings safety into the body. The body likes that. Now it's normal to be in all these places. So there's good things that come out of being in a sympathetic state too. There's good things that come out of being a perfectionist or having that perfectionistic part. It's when those things become chronic and we're stuck there is when it becomes a real issue. So it's not that if we're in that place, we just need to recognize like, it makes sense to be in that place, but now is it starting to hurt me? So that kind of answers your question. I guess educating people on, what the different states of the nervous system are is helpful, and being able to recognize what state that I'm in is really helpful. And then, understanding that like, it's not, we're all in these different states. It's a spectrum that we're on, and we flow back and forth. And that's what we want. We want to be able to flow back and forth. That's when we can't do that is when our body starts to be like, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? And then chronic conditions can start to develop.
I love that you brought up the nervous system, because that's where I live. So that's where actually that's kind of the story why Auria and I we started working together in this capacity at all, because I'm so neuromuscular. Where do you feel that? Where is that in your body? What muscles are you working? What are you doing? Where are you mentally right now? Where's your cognitive state? Like, walk in, it's not about, here, let me kill you. Let's just add some more stress to your life, negative stress, not positive stress, and just kill you even more so you're even more dead and are more disconnected, which is kind of when people first meet me and start training with me. I'm a very different type of exercise specialist to swallow, because I'm like, hold on. You come in, after your work or fight or whatever, and I just need to get a good workout in. I'm like, well, let's come back and let's focus. And because that is the true way to find results. Because if you're disconnected, like you said, it's the same way in physical fitness. If you're going through the motions and you're a yogi going through it every single day, you're still not getting the benefit if you're just doing it. So with that, would you say, because I've worked in management, Aria's worked in management, would you say leadership and whether or not you're a good leader is determined by your nervous system?
Is what by my nervous system?
Determined, like how your leadership styles are done.
It's a huge part. Yeah. I mean, I think probably there's a lot that people learn and they try to emulate, which may not be part of the nervous system, but ultimately you can't override what's inside of you. So yes, that's really what's going to shine. So if you're in a sympathetic state, you're operating from that place. That's where your leadership's going to come from.
And does that typically mean your employees hate you and you hate your job and you never want to go to work and you're the worst boss in the whole building and no one wants to work with you and your turnover rate is insane?
No, I mean, listen, no one's perfect. Nope. And part of doing this work is that compassion that you create for yourself. Then you start to understand what other people's parts are and what other states they're in and why they may be in these places, and you develop more compassion for them. But I don't think that, if you have a leader that's very high energy, that societally can actually look really good, that's what they want. And let's say it's a manager for someone that works in with client facing, right? Or sales. So that type of energy, I see a lot in that industry. And that's what they're looking for when they're hiring people too. No, I don't think it's necessarily, I don't think a lot of people have awareness around that. It's just kind of become the norm. It's normal in the sales industry that people are going to be a higher energy. So most likely they're going to be more in a sympathetic state. It's rarer that someone who is in more of a shutdown state that they would be in sales, right? Now that could start to create a problem. If someone who's more in a shutdown state and has that type of energy, that it may be challenging for them, even if they could succeed at sales. Because I don't believe in that. I don't believe that. There's a lot of talk about introverts and extroverts, right? You can be really good at sales and be an introvert. This is another way of where we can look at this. And where it becomes toxic is when we say that person isn't the norm. And so they're not good. And then we kind of have it out for them. I see that more in terms of what you're describing. But yes, in terms of someone who's more leading from their parts, not necessarily that they're in these other places. It's more leading from their parts where that can start to cause a lot of issues and a lot of toxicity, because then people respond with their parts and it's gets.
Then everybody's parts are at the table and everybody's parts are fighting and nothing's getting done.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy being spent on drama is a way that we can say it.
Yes, and I feel like there are a lot of people in the offices that I have worked in where they will literally like throw gasoline into the fire because it's like everything's going too smoothly. So we need to mix things up in here, and like they cause problems. And it's like, but it was all going well. Why? So what is that? Just a need to never be safe in your own like leadership work environment with your boss, with your colleagues?
So there could be some different things going on there, but the way I look at it from a nervous system perspective is that a part is showing up. They like chaos. And we can look at that in many different ways of saying like most of these things evolved when we were children, right? So then we can kind of see it's like, okay, well, this person, they probably grew up in a chaotic environment and they don't know that's what they feel safe in. That's what their system is used to. So when if things are like healthy, if they're like in a healthy environment, they don't feel safe because their system is so used to being in chaotic. So yeah, their system is like that chaotic piece is like, we gotta get some chaos here. And when they don't have that awareness, then they just throw that chaos out and then create that chaos. And then that chaos piece is like, yeah, woo, I feel good now. But it's detrimental, obviously, to the team, the environment, and ultimately mostly to that person that keeps living in those cycles, because they're going to have some sort of then like other parts that come in with that of like, probably like a shaming piece that comes on, and then it's just like a cycle that they're in.
Yeah, very, very helpful and a wonderful example of why everyone should go to therapy. Even if you don't think you have something to work on, maybe you do. Maybe you are accidentally causing chaos at work. And I think that'd be nice to address. And that is something, Karen, also you brought up. There's a lot of people who were raised in homes where there was no safety and no actual like relaxation. Like there's already high tension, high stress. And so when they're put in environments where it is kind of calmer and quieter, that feels stressful. Mm-hmm. But I think, unfortunately, it would be a really good opportunity to go to therapy and talk about being present and living in calm. And if all of us could do that, this would be a much happier place. So just blanket statement, I think like low energy, low stress is a really good goal for all of us. And then we can achieve from there. And also something with IFS, with one of the C's I remember was creativity. And I wanted to address that too, because we no longer appreciate art and appreciate things like being able to play the piano or write music or sing or paint, just things that are very simple that maybe as children we were kind of allowed to do here and there. But as adults, we're not able to have the appreciation for those wonderful things that are very, 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 very human. And so, but to be able to express in those ways, we do need to be present and calm. And also just, let's have some appreciation for the arts again, versus just like money making.
This is America. I mean, that song just came into my head. Yeah, I mean, my whole view on all of this and why I do what I do is because I just see when I'm out in the world, people are just reacting. I believe that the way that America is, and that's what the things that society puts in our head of like what's important is why we're in this place of like this mental health crisis. It's hard for people this goes back to like what we were talking about is when they're doing this work and to feel safe, it's hard for people to be like, well, if I don't do those things, what's going to happen to me? If I follow my heart and I do my art, how am I going to make money? So yeah, it's rewiring the brain, obviously, but being able to feel safe again. So that childhood thing, like when I started doing this work, I was like, I want to feel like I'm in the flow. That's what I would say. And then I couldn't really explain to people what that meant. I knew internally, it's like, well, I don't care. At that time, I was also going to school for functional medicine. And so there was a lot of people in there that were like, I've got to get, all these fruits and veggies in. And like, I got this chart on my fridge, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not into any of that anymore. I used to do that. And it used to be like, everything had to be, I had to get my 10,000 steps and like all these things. And this is like, I just throw that stuff out the window. I mean, part of that has just become part of me because I've done it for so long. And it's like, I'm more listening into my body of like what my body needs me to put in it, or what it needs to like move. But like what I got to is like, I want to feel like a child again. That's ultimately what I'm saying when I say that, is like, I want to feel like I did before I was 10, because at that 10 marker, that's where like all this stuff like took over. And then people were like, well, what does that mean? And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, a child doesn't think about like, I need to get my, all my exercise in this week. I need to eat healthy. I've got to always be producing. They're like, outside, and they're like, I want to go outside just because I want to go outside. And then it's like they're present, they're seeing all the things. They're like very aware of like what's around them, and not just like in detail, right? Like all the gradients of like the colors that they're seeing, and all of that stuff gets lost. And that's ultimately, I don't think that we'll ever get back to, or I will, or people that I work with. I don't think the goal is to get back to that 100%, because we are adults now. But there's a lot of that I feel like that is missing. That is really the problem.
We are going to take a quick pause from today's conversation, but we want to use this moment to remind you why Head to Toe Strength does this work.
Our mission was born from my lived experience. I was disowned for who I loved, dismissed and harmed by medical bias, and worked inside fitness centers that only push diet culture over real care.
Head to Toe Strength exists to build the kind of support you need right now, a place where every body, every identity, and every story is fully seen, heard, and supported.
If you are ready to move from feeling stuck and unseen to a place of genuine, holistic strength, if you're ready to stop just surviving and start thriving, we are ready to guide you.
Visit headtotoestrength.com today to book a free introductory call with our team and start your journey with us. That's headtotoestrength.com.
Yep, I could not agree more.
And I don't remember who says it, but it's like, walk through the world with that child, like with child's eyes, with that childlike wonder. And that excitement and that joy, and, celebrate your birthday, and, go give yourself something and celebrate and reward and do ridiculously silly things in public just because you feel like doing them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, be the person that someone pulls out their phone and be like, this adult is crazy. Be like, yes, thank you. So then when you're trying to navigate a corporate environment and corporate structure while also being in your safety, like, what does that battle look like? And how do you keep your safety, keep your boundaries, keep your health? Because we already know that women in leadership already produce better results immediately just by how we lead and how we're able to problem solve. But like, the corporate world's not going to just let you be like safe and boundaried. And thankfully, like a little bit now with us millennials, we're kind of being more like, nope, I'm taking a mental health day, deuces, bye. But I just don't feel like that world, that capitalistic, like Auria said, world wants that.
They don't. I'm going to say this. So my fiance is a CEO of a company, and he tells me what I do is a threat to them. So they don't. Now, I see things changing, and I'm still trying to come up with a way of like really getting some type of program into corporations, because it's like I'm so passionate about it, but it's also a little bit of a struggle for me because I run into it and then like my parts do get activated when I'm like speaking to people that are like, nope, like we're going to continue to do it this way because it's the way that makes our money, and they don't really care about the people, right? What I will say is this is like I have worked with companies, and the companies that I've worked with and the individuals that I've worked with that are in the corporate settings, part of this work is to expand the capacity. So many of us have a very small window of tolerance of what we can handle. We want to be able to some part of the work that I do somatically is to be able to feel into these things that were uncomfortable. They could be situations that were uncomfortable, or maybe it's something that's like hasn't even happened yet, right? And then we start to create safety into the body, and then we can start to expand out of like what feels okay for us. Because when we were younger too, we had a really high window of tolerance, and it shrinks over time based off of like all the wounds and like scars that we go through, right? We can kind of think of it that way. And so we're trying to heal those things that have wounded us, understand like what those parts are, so that we're able to expand back out that capacity. And that's a lot of like what the work is. So a lot of they're not going to go away. We're not going to change the world 1,000% and be able to go and live in this kumbaya village. And like, that's just not reality. So we want to be able to, like I said, we want to be able to like expand what we're able to hold. And I talk about capacity a lot. So how much, and it's not, the capacity piece is internal. So how much am I able to handle? And when we get into places that are even like these higher levels of leadership potentially, or even something that's like, I don't necessarily believe that like, just because you're a CEO of a company, you have to handle more than someone who's like in sales in your company. So I guess I shouldn't say that, but the more, let's say that we have children, we're married, we have aging parents that we're taking care of that now have conditions that we're dealing with. We have a job that is a lot of pressure and has a lot of high expectations. It's sales. And, if I don't meet my quotas, then like, I'm not going to have a job. So these are realities of life, and they're not going to go away. We can decide when we do this type of work, like, hey, the sales is really not good for me. Ultimately is what I'm deciding is really not a good place for me to be, and I need to be over here. Or it can be like, yeah, I really enjoy sales. I just need to be able to like handle more, because now that there's all of this other things that are on my plate now. And so being able to expand the capacity of the things that we're able to hold is a lot of the work that we're doing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. How does someone figure out their own capacity?
Well, I don't know that it's like we can say you're at like a 5 capacity and you're at like 100. It's not like measured in that way. It's I don't like that I'm like snapping at my kids. When I'm driving, I'm like a very aggressive driver, and I'm yelling at people. And ultimately it's, I feel like I'm stuck in this cycle, and it's harming me. It's harming my children. I might be even afraid of like what I'm going to do. Right. So things like that can happen. Some people are just like, I don't know how I'm going to handle all these things that are like thrown on my lap right now. So it could be not that they're like outwardly having these reactions, it just internally they feel like a lot of anxiety. That could be an indication, or it could be the other way that they feel like I'm just going to shut down and avoid. I'm not going to deal with any of it. So it can show up in different ways.
And I like, sorry, Auria, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say those are really good examples. And also, Karen, what you mentioned earlier too, of I just don't feel like myself. I think that's also really helpful.
Yeah. Or I don't want to, this is not how I want to be. this is not getting me to where I want to go.
Like, this is not how I want to show up for the world. This is not the person I expected myself to be, and X, Y, or Z kind of thing.
Yeah. And if those things. And then, if I have like a certain goal that I'm trying to reach, it's like, the reality is that I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to own my own business if I can't handle more stress.
And stress is also a spectrum. Like, it depends on the person. It depends on your circumstances and how full your cup is already when you're trying to start a business or do whatever it is. Follow that soul goal to get yourself into flow.
Exactly. I'm glad that you said that, because what really came up for me is when you do this type of work, you're able to choose in the moment of like, this is what I need to do for myself right now to make sure that I have the capacity that I need, instead of it being like, I need to do all of these things. So like, I used to have and I was taught this in a corporate job, like everything was scheduled to like the 15 minutes. And there were certain things that were blocked for like more of like creative time. And then it was like blocking for like meetings and like other things, right? And then outside of that work, it was like, okay, and then I need to meditate. I need to lift weights. I need to get cardiovascular work in. I need to do my meal prep. And that is a lot of what I did. And then what I see still is what a lot of is being pushed. That, I think a lot of that is why we see so much of this burnout now that people talk about, because it was like, it's impossible. And so when we start to do this kind of work, then we can just choose in the moment. It's like, before I got on this call, I was like, I need to get up and get outside. I wouldn't have done that before. I would have just like kept pushing through, and then whatever my scheduled time was to like do my cardiovascular work, that's when I would have done it, right? Or maybe not have done it because I would have been so tired.
Yeah, so helpful. Yeah, if you're craving a moment outside, please go outside. It's not that
or anything.
Yes, if you're craving anything, listen to your body, listen to your needs.
Because you brought back touching the steering wheel when you're on your way to work, and you're both saying like how to listen to those cues. What are really easy ways for you to start going there? To following those cues, being in the moment, being present rather than, okay, at my whole schedule, I've got this meeting, I've got my workout booked from 12 to 1, and then I've got this, and then I've got this, and then we've got ballet, and then dinner, and then bedtime, and baths, and like, how do you even, like, the beginning?
So the beginning, and there was a lot in what you just said, that there's so much work to do in like what you just said. And I'm not saying that's you, it's just an example, but in no one person is the same, right? So what you just described, that could be someone and they could be totally cool with it. So what we need to do, the very first thing that we need to do is just start to become aware of like, what is happening in our body, and then creating that safety in our body, which is being present. So there's small things that we can do, like we mentioned, is like really feeling the steering wheel and really taking the time, not just be like, oh yeah, I feel it, and move on. It's like, is it leather? Do you have a furry cover on it? You know, like what color is it? What does it make my body feel like when I like feel this? Is there a smell to it? All of those things, the body likes that. The body's like, oh yeah, this is, we're here, we're present. Like I feel really safe right now. And then that starts to get things like functioning all internally, like the way they should be functioning. So the more that we can do things like that, we can do it as we like take our bathroom break. Like I'm feeling my right foot and then my left foot. And then like what sensations do I feel in my body when I feel that, you know? So we can think about it as like the 5 senses of like moving through those types of things, and we don't have to add this on as another thing to do in another practice. It can just be done, you know, in the normal things that we do, taking a shower, you'll start to see a huge difference just in doing that thing of becoming like creating that safety in your body. So then your body starts rewiring in the brain, right? So we're trying to rewire those neural pathways of like what's in the past. So our brain is like, all these things that's happened to us in our past has created how it's communicating to each other. So there might be something from a long time ago that it's like, yeah, I'm going to respond in this way, or it doesn't make me feel safe, but it's not real anymore. So that's changing when we do stuff like that. And then it's also creating a greater awareness in our body. And so ultimately, when we can create that greater awareness in our body, we can interject sooner. So we've done a lot of work like on our mindset, blah, 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 blah. Everything's in our mind. The reality is that our body and our mind are communicating. It's on a constant loop. Bethany loves this. And 80% of what's happening there is actually being communicated from the body. We know this now. So really, if we don't know what's going on in the body, it's already come to the brain, and it's already like affecting those neural pathways. So the more that we can understand what's happening in the body, then that we can then create a shift before it even gets to the brain.
Incredibly helpful.
And that's why the brain is so cool, because even if you say, this is who I am, your neural pathways can rewire, relearn, grow, change. That's why it's so good, like Auria said, for the arts and music, because then those neural pathways become more fluid and they become much easier to grow and change and manipulate and build. And tactile, types of work, even like I teach dance fitness. It's called Groove. And we have like some songs where you're just tapping, like you're tapping your body and like feeling that buzzy tingling feeling of your whole body just being like tapped gently, and what that can do. And like, I feel it when I go to the ocean. Like, it sounds all like hooey-dooey and super hippie, but I like feel the electrons and the neutrons and all the energy that's flowing and the grounding and the energy coming from the sea, and how it, like, you can let it go. And I feel like too many women are just like, this is just my life. This is just the way it is. I just have to survive it. When there isn't. There's so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really sad, right? That's not living. That's not what life's about. And you're right. There's so many women and people that is the way that it is for them. Yeah.
It's like, this is my life. This is what happened to me. I'm going to die anyways. I just got to get through. And it's just... And Auria and I focus specifically on women just because we're such a forgotten about demographic in all aspects, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to mothering, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to being a caretaker for parents and for children, for your partner, depending on the partner that you have. And it's just, we feel like helping even one woman just reconnect. Like, who are you? Do you like who the person that, like, do you ever even look at the mirror, in the mirror at yourself and go, oh, that, I didn't think, who's that person?
Yeah. I forget what I was doing earlier today, but it was just like totally it's just like there's no identity even anymore. They don't know what their identity is. And there's like this loss of, just totally have lost themselves completely. Oh, I know what it was. So I had mentioned my fiance, but we actually have decided not to get married. And part of that whole process for me was like, and I moved to Florida and like all of these things, right? And so it's like kind of looking back at the last 2.5 years since I've been in Florida, and just really realizing, yeah, there was a lot of me that wasn't myself anymore. And then how I think I recognized it in other people first, other women mainly. When I saw other women out, there was like this connection that I had, that I was like, oh, I understand you better now. I understand like what internally is like going on with you. You feel, well, I don't want to I know this is going to be out there, so like I don't want to say too much, but yeah, just like how so many women, especially, and I had this conversation with my parents, including my father, and I was like, yes, it happens with men too, but so many women especially just totally lose themselves in relationships, because that really has been for a long time the woman's role of just like, you don't get a say, like you know, I make more money than you do. I control like what the finances are. And, you know, like you're like running the household maybe, but you know, and I'm out here and I'm working, but it's like, they're living their life. They're doing them. And there's like so much put on a woman of like all these things that she just isn't can't like fully show up as herself anymore.
Well, and she also probably doesn't even know who she is anymore. Like that, you know, and it reminds me because I was just talking to someone about, you know, she's an adult daughter, but her mom is still 100% connected because she's her whole life. Her mom's whole life is wrapped up in her. And there's so many women, especially from the generation I feel like our parents come from, where that is what moms are, because they couldn't have their own homes. They couldn't have jobs. They couldn't have credit cards. You know, a lot of this didn't happen. And it's just like, it almost feels a little bit like resentment from them because we're standing up and going, no, I'm doing this. And there's a little bit of that, like maybe jealousy or that complete like lack of understanding of, well, why would you want to find yourself, quote unquote, like, ugh, you're just being ridiculous. Just deal with it.
Yeah. And I think part of that is that there's a huge fear component there of like, I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know what the world is going to look like. And where does that leave me in the world when like things are changing like that? Because I've recognized that in my mom, like things that have happened. And I've said to her, like, there's no way that someone in my generation would stay with that man. You know, I was talking about someone in her generation, and she had a response to that. And she, you know, it's sad. Like I still think of this situation with my mom's friend, and it's like, I don't have to understand, like, it's not my marriage, right? So I don't have to understand, and it's not for me to like judge or like be in. And yes, I think that certain people can get through it. This situation though, it was like never really talked about, and I'm just going to kind of forget that it like happened. And I think that there's so much of that still going on that I didn't even realize, because when I went through my situation, I kind of felt like, well, it's time. I remember saying this to a lot of people. Well, it's time to like settle down. You know, it's time to live in this like suburban life. These are things that I have to do now because like I'm getting married. And so like things do have to shift. And yes, there is like truth to that, but not to the extent of like society makes it. It's like, I should honestly completely be able to be like 100% who I was before, with really not too much changing. Like, yeah, I have to give more time to him because I'm in a relationship right now. So there has to be like time that's given to him, right? That wasn't before when he didn't exist. But a lot, like most things, like really don't have to change. And I see like now being in this relationship, and now like exiting this relationship, and then really doing a lot of work in the relationship. I mean, we went to couples counseling, all the stuff that we had to go through like the marriage to even be able to get married, that type of counseling. And then just really diving into it of like, you know, being curious about like people that I've known that are my friends or family that have been married for a long time, which I wasn't before. I was just always kind of like, marriages doesn't work and I don't want to do it. And here we are. And I think a lot of that is that it feels like so many people just totally lose their identity. I mean, I can think of a lot of friends that it's like, we're not even like really friends anymore after they got married. It's like, we're not really friends. And why does it have to be that way? It doesn't. I mean, this whole idea of like, oh, I have to be home every night and I have to put food on the table for like my family. It's like, well, that's all. Yes, it's great to spend time with your family, but you also need to make sure that you're still your own individual.
I agree, Karen. Yes. And especially now, and I brought this up a lot, but the expectations have remained the same for women, despite women also working 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about that person's schedule, in this case, the woman who's a wife and a mom working 40 hours and then coming home and taking care of the kids, you have to really carve out individual time, but it's not fair that the stereotypical male husband and dad gets to only work the 40 hours. Mm-hmm. And then gets dinner provided for him, gets childcare, but he gets the hugs and the kisses, and the mom is slaving away. So that needs to just completely shift. And I think the socialization for women to be the caretakers of everyone hasn't gone away. But the push to go to college, the push to work 40 hours, the push to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, even if the mother doesn't work, she's still taking care of the kids all day, which is working. And then it's like, I see this a lot too. And then the dad is like, well, I just worked all day. You know, I don't want to do anything. And the mom's like, well, I've been taking care of these kids all day. So yeah, there's a lot of rupture in that system right now that really is not working. Not that it was working. I mean, we can look at it like it was kind of working before in a better way, in different ways. Bethany's looking at me like, what the hell? I'm trying not to like talk too much, so I didn't want to get like,
oh no, please,
all that was going on in my brain, but
let it out. Be free.
This all goes back to like nervous system work though. Like when we do this type of work, then we take that empowerment back and that agency back. And then we're able to say like, and it doesn't feel as scary, you know, like this isn't okay for me. This isn't working for me. Like I'm taking care of the kids all day long and it's a lot, you know. How about on Saturday, you know, I leave you with the kids all day, because a lot of it is like they don't understand, right? They're like, whatever. It's like you get to stay at home all day and it's like, it's not a big deal. So doing things that like help them understand like what it's like to take care of children all day, I think is helpful. But you have to be able to have the assertiveness and have these boundaries, right? And if you can't do those things in your relationship, then that's a whole nother issue. And I mean, like, if you are doing those things, if you are doing those things, or if you've done the work to be able to do those things, and then it's not the response back that you're getting is not like a healthy response back, then we need to have another conversation.
There's a whole
but
other
I think
podcast.
a lot of women aren't even able to do that part. And so being able to do like this type of work first, I think makes you feel really good about like, as a female, I did everything that I could in that relationship. And, you know, this is the best choice for me and even my kids, if that's the case. If you decide to exit, right? Because it's like, it does take, there is this co-regulation piece that we talk about in nervous system work. And I had just made a post about this recently, because I think sometimes people think like, well, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not regulating myself enough where I can like regulate this other person to like be with me in this like in this healthy space, you know. My post was about it takes two to tango. And yes, that's true sometimes, but I think a lot of times what's happening with women is we're using that as an excuse for people's behavior. And sometimes it's just like, you know, it's not. All I'm doing is setting a boundary, or I'm asking for like a need to be met. And if I can't get those things, like, you know, it's my choice if I'm going to stay in that or if I'm not.
And that's typically never I mean, in the majority of relationships, from my own personal experience with all of my friends and family, it's not typically met with kindness. It's typically met with judgment and how dare you, and my gosh, what are you asking of me?
Yeah. Yeah, and we can think about this in a way of all the women out there listening is to raise your boys differently. That's really important. I see, I mean, I don't have my own kids, but I see it a lot of with like the women that I work with or the friends that I have. Men can change too. So we can't control them to change, right? We can't go in there if your fixer parts going on, you need to be aware of that, right? But we also have to be able to understand, like, maybe like, okay, I just did like all this work and they're not there yet. But if they're not willing to do it, if they're not willing to do that work, then, you know, you have to decide, like, is this what I want to stay in? Exactly.
And there's a lot of fear behind that.
A lot of fear. It feels a lot easier to stay in those old patterns. And this is when we can go back to talking about like this fear piece of even starting to do this work. And now it's like, now I'm out there and I'm putting this work to use. And that's like a whole nother part of it is that's scary too, of how people are going to respond to me, especially the people closest to you, right? It's really going to start to like throw them off.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Mm-hmm. When they say the more healed you are, the more enemies, quote unquote, that you like gain, because then all the people that have benefited from taking advantage of you no longer get to.
Yeah. And yes. And I guess where my mind was going is that I think it's unfortunate, but, and correct me if you guys think that I'm wrong or you girls think that I'm wrong, that the amount of healthy people in the world is not great. There's not a lot of healthy people in the world. And I'm talking like emotionally healthy. And so that can be a whole nother thing that I see in the work that I do, that it starts to feel like we're lonely. I start to see that. And we can talk about this too, is like, you know, it's lonely at the top is what they say. And I see that when people are like, I'm having a harder time, now that I know all this stuff, I'm having a harder time being in these older relationships that I've had, or like, I just don't want to be in these relationships anymore. And I feel guilty about it. Like, I love this person, but it's just really not healthy for me anymore. And then how do I go out now that I'm different? How do I go out and find my new tribe? Yeah, there's a lot of grief in the work to put more fear out there.
But it is so much better. Speaking as someone who has gone through many of those shifts, and Auria is one of my best friends from that shift of my healed self and not being the doormat anymore. And it is so much more rewarding, even though that whole middle period sucks ass and it's terrible and it's scary and it's lonely and it's frustrating. But once you get to the other side, I can tell Auria anything and I'm not like ready for the backlash of like, all right, is this accepted? Is this acceptable? Is it not acceptable? Like, where are we on this, barometer here? Like, I can just talk. And if she doesn't agree, we'll have a conversation. If she does agree, cool. But it's not like, all right, I just bared my soul. Let's go.
Yeah. So you were in fight mode before?
Oh, yeah. My story is long and not pretty. Lots of moving, lots of upheaval, lots of narcissism. Same with Auria, lots of narcissism, lots of perfectionism, lots of emotional abuse, lots of all the abuses. Like there's a lot that I've been working through with my therapist for 5 years. And we've even like tried different levels because I got frustrated of like, I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. Like, this is just who I am forever? Like, am I just this fucked up walking human who can't connect? Like, I haven't had a relationship in years because I don't know how to go into a healthy physical relationship now. I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to a lot of that. And, you know, just because of this new thing that's going on in my life, there's been a lot that's like come up for me again. And that thought of like, what will it look like on the other side? Or like, am I going to stay stuck here? That fear of like being like, it does a little bit feel like a failure to me. And, you know, like even though I said earlier, like I didn't want to be married and I didn't really I didn't believe in marriage for myself. I didn't think that marriage really worked. I was like fully on board though, being in this. And it was like, I was really like committed to it. And it was like, yeah, this is something that I do really want now. And so to now be like, that's not going to be my life at all. And what does that look like for me? This identity piece, right? So yeah, there is this feeling of like, I feel a little bit floaty, in my space right now because it's like, there's a lot of uncertainty for me. And so that doesn't feel good, right? That doesn't feel good to feel that way, but I have come to a place now where it's like, well, it's not forever. And like, this is just part of the process and really leaning into it, where before I would have been like really fighting it and like pushing it away. And now it's more like leaning into it and embracing it and like trying to learn from it in the moment instead of learning like years later even, right? I think that helps to be able to get us to move more in alignment, you know, because we're not like, even though I'm in this place where it's like, there's a lot of uncertainty, I don't feel stuck like I probably would have in the past.
Congratulations. Yes. I mean, it still sucks, but congratulations on like being able to know that this too shall pass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've kind of gotten to the point, and with us like just launching our company, I'm kind of in this phase of like, cool, broke, don't know what's gonna happen, don't know where we're going, don't know what's gonna do, like, and it's just, all right, we'll have faith and trust it and believe the process and what my beliefs are and what I believe in and how important I think this work is. But there's so much unknown that it's not crippling to me anymore, where I'm just like, I'm staying. This is where I know I'm at. This is where I'm good. I'm fed. I have a salary. I'm not moving. And we're staying here. Who cares how much it sucks?
Yeah.
Would you like to give us a final takeaway or kind of, you know, where you want to go from here and how to find you and where to follow you and all that good jazz that we have now?
The best way to communicate with me right now is on LinkedIn or Instagram, and you can Google me and find me, just Karen Canham or Karen Ann Wellness. I'll come up. My website's going through a revamp, so usually I would say that, but you won't be able to contact me through that. No, like this has been a really lovely conversation and just so authentic. And I think it's important to say that like, when we talk about like going back to like being a child, why I made the comment of like, it's the goal in the sense of like, I know what I'm saying of like that feeling, but I also know as my adult, like it's not going to be exactly like that. And, you know, these things that we go through as an adult, like, deciding not to get married or starting a business, like these are not things that we would go through as a child. And it's part of life, and to be able to, I guess, be in it and stay like connected to yourself and connected to other people while these things are going on is in normalizing it. I think that's why so many people just disconnect from themselves and other people, is because we're taught that like these emotions are not okay, that I feel these things, or these things that I'm going through are like really shameful. And I guess that's what the work has really taught me, is like it's life, and it's a normal part of life, and staying connected when we don't feel like our greatest selves is healing in itself.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your authenticity and your vulnerability. We are all about that here. We want to have real conversations. We don't want to have something curated. We want you, and I really appreciate you sharing your soul. And we thank you very much for coming on our show, for coming on our show and giving us your time. We're very appreciative of that.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I wish you guys all the best, and I'll stay in touch. I'm excited to see what you guys do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us for this powerful conversation. We hope it gave you the knowledge and the clarity you need for your month.
If you found yourself nodding along today, don't keep this to yourself. Share this episode with a woman who needs to be reminded that her story is valid and she is not alone.
You can find all links to our guests, the resources we mentioned, and of course, the direct link to Head to Toe Strength in the blog show notes.
We'll be back next month to continue bringing you out of the maze and back to your center. Until then, remember to be seen, be heard, and keep choosing the path of genuine strength. Take care.